Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and sorry for the unusual circumstances of this intro, because I was originally supposed to do 5 horror Halloween reviews this week, but unfortunately I got myself COVID. Yep, after 2.5 years, COVID finally got to me, but thank God I'm vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and I got the first booster. But COVID really does suck. I've been cooped up in my apartment the whole time, and I just haven't had the energy to record the other 3 reviews. That's right, you're not getting nothing. I did record 2 reviews of my planned Halloween series before I got myself COVID, and I'm gonna upload them both right now, and then the other one will be up tomorrow. So I do apologize that you're not getting a full week of horror reviews, but on the bright side, I did review Werewolf by Night. If you didn't watch that, please do. It needs the views. Please watch it. That was very desperate. And unfortunately, it might look like I'm not going to Halloween Horror Nights this year. I had the entire September and beginning of October to do it, but I've just been too preoccupied with work that I couldn't go. And unfortunately, this was my last week to do so. So that's not probably going to happen, but I will be moving the Halloween Horror Nights videos from last year from my vlog channel onto this channel. So you're getting some sort of Horror Nights related videos, even if they're from last year. And since I'm nearly cured of COVID, I still have it, but I think it's going to be gone within a couple days of uploading this video. I'm going to be ranking all the Halloween movies now that the Blumhouse trilogy has ended. So again, I apologize for the impromptu start to this video, but yeah, COVID really does suck. But with all that being said, here is the first of my 2 Halloween retro reviews for this year. Enjoy. And that first review for this particular Halloween season is 1953's The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, directed by Eugène Lourié, with special effects done by Ray Harryhausen in his first movie by himself after being an assistant to Willis O'Brien. This movie is based off the short story that was written by Ray Bradbury in 1951 called The Foghorn, and the premise is as simple as it can be. There's nuclear bomb tests taking place in the Arctic that unfortunately wake up a giant prehistoric reptile, Rhedosaurus, as it makes its way to the northeastern United States and wreaks havoc throughout New York City. So it's up to humanity to try to stop the creature before it destroys everything. It's as simplistic as you can get. I've talked about this movie very briefly on this channel before. It ranked at number 100 in my top 100 favorite movies of all time. I mentioned it really briefly as an important landmark film to the creation of Godzilla when I talked about the history of both King Kong and Godzilla. So now I'm finally getting the opportunity to give you guys a full review for it and talk about why I think this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and more importantly, why it's at number 100, because at number 100, it's not like high up there in terms of my favorite movies of all time, because while I love this, there are a few issues that are pretty much of their time. It is a Ray Harryhausen movie, and as I mentioned before, it was his first work on his own after being an assistant to Willis O'Brien. But unfortunately, this movie doesn't have the same gravitas or the same impact as King Kong did back in 1933. I'll touch upon what's good about the movie, but unlike King Kong, none of the characters really stick out in this film, and to be honest, they're kind of generic. And the story has so many unique concepts that are just kind of brushed to the side that could have been explored had this been a longer film. And the script has a couple of interesting concepts that, if the movie had been longer, could have been explored a little more, but unfortunately this movie doesn't really take advantage of that. For example, when the main character asks the scientist if it's possible for a prehistoric creature to be frozen for millions of years and stay alive after being thawed out, the scientist's assistant comes in with a story about a pair of woolly mammoths that were thawed out after thousands of years with perfectly fine fur coats and meat that was still edible. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Are you just really gonna brush past that? I mean, if the movie had explored that concept, then I feel like those woolly mammoths would have taken focus away from the Rhedosaurus, but it just seemed like such a weird one-off line to just ignore. The other idea in this movie that is brought up but is introduced so late is the Rhedosaurus's blood being contagious and could possibly cause a worldwide pandemic. Considering that we all lived through a pandemic that is still ongoing, by the way, I felt like if this movie had been remade in any sort of capacity, that would be something to really explore, because I doubt that Shin Godzilla sequel isn't coming at all, because if they ever made a sequel to Shin Godzilla, then having him be a metaphor for the pandemic is the only way to go. So that's a little disappointing that the story and characters aren't given a whole lot, and the main focus of the movie is the special effects, which usually that is a bad thing, like with, say, the Transformers movies or the Jurassic World movies. But The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is such a groundbreaking film that you can kind of ignore all the shortcomings with the story and characters, because Ray Harryhausen's special effects for the Rhedosaurus are fantastic. He did all the work by himself. He didn't have a crew to help him out the way Willis O'Brien did with all of his features. So every frame of stop motion that is done in this movie is done by Ray Harryhausen himself. And he invented some new techniques, including a technique called dynamation, that really helped bring the Rhedosaurus to life. And this monster is just such a cool design. While the Rhedosaurus in the movie is classified to be a dinosaur, it isn't like any dinosaur that we know of, so it's allowed to have more of a fantastical element to it, and that just makes its design all the much cooler. Just the way it walks around on all fours, the way it destroys buildings, and just the way it looks is pretty neat. The spines going down its back. I may have mentioned this before in the channel, but the way the original Godzilla came to be was out of the result of a failed Japanese-Indonesian co-production that Tomoyuki Tanaka was in charge of. As he was heading back to Japan after realizing this project wasn't going to happen, he thought of The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and decided to make their own version of it. So while King Kong certainly was an influence in some way, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is probably the most direct inspiration for the original Godzilla. And one of the reasons the original Godzilla is a more superior film to The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is because it's taken more seriously. Godzilla was made by a country that experienced the effects of nuclear weapons firsthand, so that movie is allowed to be as in-depth and as dark as it can be, whereas this movie, while I still love it, is very much a monster movie. The United States has not had any casualties as a result of the atom bomb or the hydrogen bomb. So our lack of traumatic experience clearly shows when you watch The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and Godzilla back to back. But regardless of whatever shortcomings this movie has, I still enjoy the hell out of it. The stop motion animation is fantastic. It's got some iconic sequences like the lighthouse, which was the main set piece of the Ray Bradbury story. And again, yeah, the characters and story aren't all that interesting. There's not a lot to them, but what works about this movie really works. And I'd say it's worth seeing in your lifetime. I would have said good but not great had this movie not been so influential. If you're a younger Godzilla fan but you haven't seen The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, you owe it to yourself to watch this movie as soon as possible, because without it, Godzilla probably would have never existed. And there you go, that's my review for The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Now tomorrow I'm going to be reviewing another iconic American monster movie from the 1950s, but maybe iconic for all the wrong reasons. I won't say what it is, but you'll just have to wait until tomorrow. But for now, I want to know what you guys think about this movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, and take care of yourselves.